Zest, Ryung, Armani, Maru. Most competitive, 1 versus 1 game. Africa TV Freak Up Studio Live. 2022 GSL Season 1 Code S.
Thank you for waiting, everybody. We're back. Ryung versus Maru's up next. This should be a fun one, man. I think Maru still takes it, but Ryung's looking pretty strong.
Yeah, he's always been good TVT, so I'm excited to see what this is going to look like. But yeah, I mean, excuse me, you should always be favoring Maru, basically. It's just like a good rule of thumb. But you know what? I think Ryung, he looks to be in good shape. They hang out a lot. They talk a lot. So there should be some mind games going down here.
Yeah, these guys have buddied up lately. So, like, you would have to imagine that Ryung has a very good idea of how Maru tends to approach TVT. I mean, I would be interested in how much Maru picks Ryung's brain versus the other way around. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of how these guys hang out, but I think you're right, Artos.
It's 60-40 Texas.
I think you're right with it. Like, you know, there's going to be a lot of mind games going on here. But again, Ryung looking very strong. He just beat Zest. You can beat Zest. You can beat a lot of other good players. Again, guys, the winner of this best of 3 is going to be the first player in Group B to escape to the round of 10. Likely to be Maru, but maybe Ryung will surprise us once more.
Yeah, I like these vetoes, by the way. I think the Blackburn veto from Maru, I wonder if that is trying to... what I'm trying to figure out here is Ryung going to go to mech at all? He always was a good mech player in this matchup. Not completely reliant upon it, but a good player in that regard. And seeing a Blackburn veto from Maru might point towards the fact that, you know, that feels to me like it would be a good map for mech TVT.
You might be right. Let's see what happens, man. Curious Minds for map 1. Let's go.
2022 GSL Season 1. Team GP, Ryung. Maru.
Thoraxes, same time also on the gas. Do you think it'll be a 2-0 clean, or?
I think it could be. I mean, I think Ryung is probably going to look pretty strong in this. I think he looked actually really good, really impressive against Zest. The issue is not so much, I think, you know, how good or bad Ryung is. I think it's just that Maru is so good.
Yeah. He's
so dominant.
Yeah.
TVT's never really been a matchup he's struggled in. Even we had players like TY, you know, or Innovation fighting him. It's like Maru looks very good in the matchup. You know, he seems to understand it very deeply.
Yeah.
In Ryung, I mean, I'm still kind of forming my opinions on him here in 2022. He looks good, but I want to see some more games out of him.
Yeah. Well, Maru is just like so overpowering with Terran.
Yeah.
It does become difficult, and even if you're like a really smart, great player like Ryung. It's going to be like, how do you outsmart someone who's going to be better at everything than you?
Well, yeah, and also, you know, TVT is, I think, a really good mirror matchup.
It is.
Like an RTS. Yeah. I think StarCraft 2 TVT, I think better than StarCraft 1 TVT
it's
for
probably
sure.
The best
better than all the mirror matchups.
Between both StarCrafts.
I think so.
StarCraft 2 TVT might be the best mirror.
Yeah, I think so.
I think
I've always felt that way.
Yeah.
StarCraft 2 probably the best mirror, and any RTS for that matter.
All the mirrors in StarCraft 2 are really good.
Yeah.
Especially CZT. Nah, but TVT really, it's fantastic, I think.
Yeah, it's turned out to be a really interesting matchup. I think it took everybody a while to kind of figure it out.
Sure.
You know, it does play differently than StarCraft 1, but I don't know. I feel like, you know, really the better player tends to come out on top in TVT, and I think an active player gets rewarded more than a passive player. So I don't know. Maybe the most interesting part of this game overall is going to be the early game here. And, you know, is there any kind of moves of one player trying to cheat or move ahead or do anything surprising early on? Because TVT can end pretty quickly like that. You have some surprise plays. I mean, you can get quite the different combination of units just on 2 bases.
Yeah. And it's always kind of fun to see where they go unit-wise with this, right? Like, you have all sorts of different standards where it's like, oh yeah, the Hellion Reaper, obviously that's going to be the opener, but where do you go after that? We have, right now, Maru making a Cyclone, whereas an add-on here for Ryung. Right now.
Yeah, we're going to wait and see if there's any, you know, surprise text coming in here.
Much further back position there for Ryung. See how Maru stands exactly the ramp and Ryung just kind of pulls back.
Yeah, it is interesting. Medevac almost out now for Maru. And it's going to be a Raven coming up here now for Ryung. And with the Medevac out, this is what I was wondering. Is there going to be some kind of a push out here? Keep in mind, you can, you know, not just heal with the Medevac, you can juggle, which is how a lot of fights are oftentimes won on low, you know, economies fighting each other. There is a Widow Mine just right up in the middle of the ramp, which may even surprise him. Trying to come up there, we'll see. Wow, immediately shut down there.
Yeah.
Literally shot them off the side of the cliff.
Yeah, that was brutal. And with that mine sitting in the front, feeling pretty safe, Ryung. Just kind of zoning everything out. Oh, this is super cute.
Yeah, just try to get that depot. And there you go. The juggling comes in, gets the depot. Goodbye.
Takes like no damage there.
Yeah, a little tit for tat there.
Yeah, that was totes adorbs.
Totes adorbs. Okay, so you know, nothing too dramatic has really happened here. We've had a few swipes at each other. He's going to come in again. Now, there's a tank over here in the main, so there's no way he can basically put anything down onto that plateau in the main and make it last for too long.
Tried to hit that scan there to keep the lock-on alive, but couldn't quite get it in time there. It does get interrupted. The command center still being made. So some good intel from Maru, right? Like, he's being very, very active here. He hasn't really lost anything. Just poking the edges. Ryung immediately taking out this Hellion. Is Maru actually going to find more damage? No, he's just going to unload here.
So it looks like Maru's not done trying to be aggressive here. This is what I was wondering. Like, are more tanks going to come in now? Is he going to try to put the pressure on further? You got to be careful for both sides here in moments like this, because every unit's super important. You drop a unit here or there, and you may not have the you know, complexity to your army to kind of do what you need to do.
Ryung, by the way, hasn't committed to how he... Yeah, I was... See, he hadn't committed till just this second. He's going mech.
Oh, you're right.
So
yeah, two factories being made here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited to see that, and I'm happy to see that, because it feels like impossible to outplay Maru in Biotank versus Biotank.
Yeah, try an alternative comp.
Yeah, and Ryung has always been a good mech player in TVT, like we were talking about before, so really cool to see that.
It's important to remember that, you know, Ryung was mentored in TVT very early on by some amazing StarCraft 1 pros like Slayer's Boxer right at the start of StarCraft 2. And mech is the only way to play Brood War TVT. So it would make sense he still might have some of the strongest TVT here now. Yeah. As far as mech goes, I mean.
Oh, it's a nice siege line here. The double Raven versus double Raven standoff, but with the Vikings being added in here for Ryung, we should be able to gain air dominance and eventually push through here. But Maru slowed him a lot and has his own third down and mining. This is very, very annoying to get out of. Ooh, nice. I like these. I like these Reapers going out the side.
Yeah, he could definitely get some extra damage out. I mean, they have no usage the further this game goes, so you might as well try to get something off here. They're going to loop around, and they're going to be able to hit the third base here. Keep in mind, Maru is up a base. There hasn't been much fighting, but this entire time, Ryung has been contained, so this is a great opportunity for Ryung to try to come in here and get some kills, do some damage. maybe take control of this game once more.
Even just shutting down for a little bit.
Here we go. Ooh, big disables on the tanks.
Yes, indeed. Comes down, brings some SCVs for tanking as well. Maru's still standing and fighting reasonably well, but it looks like his tanks will get cleared out. Wow, the Reapers are still over here. Like, I mean, they don't kill as many as the SCVs he had to spend to break out, but this was all very good from Ryung, I think. Okay, he's killed 4 tanks, lost 1. And now coming across the map, this is a scary army. How many tanks does Maru have?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have enough. Is Ryung just going to, like, waltz right through this group? This is kind of crazy. By the way, your games have been surprisingly close here with Maru as well. I mean, let's not forget Armani's game with Game 1 where, I got to say, I'm a bit shocked at how close that was, although Maru did win at the very end. This looks like it's going to be very, very tough to sandbag as far as progress goes with the mech push. Now, there is a small infantry group stimmable and ready to try to take a fight, but I think there's enough Ravens. You just shut down all the tanks and keep pushing.
You might not have energy right this second.
Oh, does he not? I thought he had one on one of the Ravens. Maybe not.
He actually loses his command center as third base. So Maru's counterattack doing some big work as well. A stim forward here against 2 tanks sieging in a bad position. A disable on one of them. Oh my God. Maru just makes magic happen, seriously.
Well, yeah, the problem is that there's only tanks right now, and really if you just have a small number of infantry, that's better than a small number of tanks. I think Maru actually won this.
I think so. He's killed like every single SCVs in that main base. There's still a small chance here for Ryung. Like, tanks can be very efficient against everything.
The thing is, if you just stay away, keep in mind this army can actually pick up and medevacs. I mean, the army that's inside of Ryung's main.
Yeah, that's very true.
Can pick up and come back here and fight. You know, so like...
You might kill every building.
Yeah, he could.
One's flying away. Okay, so... I mean, I think you have to push on that tank very quickly.
I think you need to go try to end this right away because time is on Maru's side. He's got barracks still.
But there's so much up here for Maru. I think if he just takes everything and kind of spreads it and goes, he should be able to break these last tanks.
Well, let's remember there was an auto turret thrown down earlier on when he broke into the natural, so he doesn't have a disable ready on these tanks yet.
Yeah. And maybe, okay, there you go. He just got the energy for that disable. Moving forward now, and here come the SCVs and Marines. This is exactly what Maru needs to do to try to break through. Auto turret comes down.
Honestly,
it's being pretty darn efficient.
It's still not killed about 5 or 6 of the tanks. But the problem is that now he goes back and waits. He can inch forward with another tank.
Yeah.
There are no more Ravens? Were they just killed off in that fight?
Yeah.
So he keeps scanning here. If he's going to be in range, he can do it. And there's enough command centers here. He can actually keep dropping mules. So I think we're almost done with this game.
Yeah.
Everything, the super low hit points, mana on the medevacs. I mean, it's actually a pretty crazy ending to our first game here. It really looked like Ryung might take it, but yeah, there was just the exact right amount of infantry to swing every fight and basically do the more important damage sooner.
Whoa. Trying to break through right now, pulls back these Ravens, but Maru's going to come in with a flank as well.
That's it.
And it seems like he's just gonna break Ryung.
GG.
Wow, what a game though. It was really, really close. Ryung very close to winning there. Like if he had been a little bit more careful with his units, like he brought 2 tanks, they were like rallied down and they kind of walked down the ramp. He sieged them on the ramp and Maru sniped one, disabled the other, you know, and the DPS of his bio was just way too high for Ryung to really fight back with units popping out of factories one at a time. So, I mean, it was definitely clutch by Maru to take that down.
Yeah, I mean, nicely done. I think, honestly, even though Ryung lost that, and it's so important to try to win that first game, especially against Maru, it was like a really close one. And I feel like that's a loss that you leave the game with in a lot of confidence. You could not have made that closer and lost. And so I think you brush it off to what you were asking about earlier, Artosis. Turns out he will go mech here, even against Maru. Let's see what happens as we go to map 2 on Hardware. Right. Hardwire.
Hardwire even.
Played on this gaming hardware. All right, that's what I meant to say. Let's go, game 2.
2022 GSL Season 1. Team GP, Ryung. Maru.
I'm hoping to see Mech again from Ryung. I think he played it quite well. And again, you know, I think that when you're playing against someone like Maru, you don't want to go for the same thing he's going for.
Yeah. Ooh, nice shot here from production.
That is cool. We've never seen that shot before.
You know, it's funny because I think Ryung actually could have won that had he just like made some very, very small adjustments. Yes. Like just had a little bit more back at home, maybe just like a bunker or something, you know, to buy a little bit more time. When all the SCVs came into the natural, like we knew that Maru was going to win that fight, but the question was with how much left over. And, you know, I think if he had just a little bit of extra stuff to try to deal damage, maybe it's a different game. I mean, Ryung basically had what looked to be a pretty impressive lead. He broke out of the contain, had pushed into the third base, and then pushed into the natural. But that counterattack was just so strong.
Yeah. I mean, you got down that third base immediately, and then
maybe keep one or two more tanks back at home. Another, you know, volley from the tanks. Maybe splashes enough of those Marines that the math gets a little bit different, a little bit fuzzier.
Even quicker reset on rally points, right? Or your tanks siege out of where Maru can see them, so he doesn't instantly snipe one and disable the other, right? You get and that gives you the extra. That gives you 2 more shots than you would have gotten at least, and then maybe even more than that. And you know, yeah, it can definitely change the math on everything. So, like you said, I mean, you can't really get much closer than that.
So we've got on both sides so far mirrored behavior. We do have the tech lab coming here onto the factory here for Maru. Ryung hasn't gone for that just yet. Getting that first Hellion out first. But I think it's likely, like you were saying, Artosis, we're going to see mech again here from Ryung.
Yeah, I'm hoping so, but you know, I know that he can play bio. You know, Marine tank it is within his capability. A couple of Reapers going to jump up, and of course, plenty here to chase them back. In fact, a bit of a punish, I think. Oh, just barely won't get this one, but kill a Reaper, lose an SCV.
Looks like that one does get away.
Cyclone is out, so that'll guard him against any incoming attacks right now. Sea Chink on the way. Ryung now going for his own Cyclone. I like the mine.
Yeah, I like the little early game setups. These guys are super close. So, you know, when you know somebody's playstyle in and out, it does make for some pretty interesting plays, right? It becomes not just a game of StarCraft, but a little bit of a game of poker.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, you're trying to bluff with what you've got, or fake them out, or you're doing your best to try to get a read on what the other player is doing, or send out some kind of false signal to make them play in a way that you want.
Yeah, the more two players know about each other, the more those mind games are going to matter, I think. And obviously these guys know a hell of a lot about each other. Both sides getting their Ravens out. Maru, I believe, I mean, I would be pretty surprised if he went mech. And the thing is, Maru is actually quite good at mech in this matchup. But he's just, you know, so good with Biotank.
That's the thing, man. Now,
well, that being said, I guess he did get behind against Ryung, though, when he went tank bio, right? Like, he went tank Marine, he even had a contain up, and he definitely could have lost that.
It was interesting to see Maru go for that contain and see in the distance the Ravens being amassed. Like, they weren't hidden. And then, yeah, just like you would expect, Maru's tanks were disabled, and Ryung just came down there and smashed that position and started what looked like a Ryung victory until Maru, you know, managed to wizard his way out of that with, you know, stuff that only Maru can do.
Their third CC's finishing up. A couple eBays on the way for Maru. Ryung not committing to his tech as of yet. Oh, barracks, okay. So it's a little bit later on the barracks and eBays and all that, but he's been focusing pretty heavily on consistently producing Vikings, so he will have a little bit of air control here, which is always nice.
And sometimes that's how you can actually manage to really take a game. You know, once you get that air control, then you can start to decide, all right, when do I see what their position is? I know when I want to try to attack in. Or I can see the tank. Of course, they can shoot further than they can see themselves. So having that spotting from air is always going to be good. Coming into this, we've got Maru now with a third base. Although Ryung's is going to be a couple seconds behind that. And, you know, nobody's really trying to take an assertive position here. It's been pretty passive overall, which is neither good nor bad. I think in some sense it's both sides showing a lot of respect. We saw how quickly things began to, you know, take a certain direction after it was Maru trying to set up that contain. And, you know, Maru won that last game with a crazy counterattack, but that's not really how you want to win your games. Like, it's cool when it happens, and it's a great story, but you want to try to win in a cleaner fashion. So I really think this is Maru making a pretty big and necessary adjustment.
Yeah, can't argue with that. It's great to pick up a victory in any way in a tournament, but it's definitely not what you want to rely upon.
Yeah. You don't just skate by with, you know movie storyline wins every time, you know.
Yeah. Well, this is where it's going to get interesting as to how each player moves around and with what, right? Because there's different types of Terran versus Terran players.
Yep.
Some players like to take their entire army and kind of roam the map and look for positions. And then some players like to take a slightly more defensive stance and send out a couple medevacs full of units. And that's what we see Maru doing right now, right? He's got more of a defensive stance, and he's trying to go around the side. Now, the Cyclone kind of catches him and deals a lot of damage there. So that was a nice catch from Ryung. But even more important, I think, is just seeing what Maru's mindset is right now.
Yeah.
Right? Because that... Honestly, I think that this is the best way to play Terran versus Terran. This is something that TY kind of was doing before everyone else, where it's like, okay, the more defensive stance, make sure that you're not going to be busted, have units out on the map so that you have some activity and you have punish potential against someone that's moving around with too much of their army.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I totally agree. And so the build-up on both sides continues. Nobody going for any kind of contain still. Nobody even setting up for any kind of counterattack with a medevac either. So, you know, a very slow game. A lot of TVT is about positioning more so than the other matchups. So it's interesting to see nobody really take any position other than, you know, a default one of sitting at the bases that they have. Although we do now see Ryung moving up here on the western side of the map with a small set of forces.
I feel like we do see Maru outdoing Ryung just slightly right now.
Yeah.
Notice that he has +1 vehicle weapons on the way, and he has 2 command centers instead of 1 command center being made. In fact, he's starting to throw up a couple starports as well, so you can kind of see that macro pulling ahead a little bit, where he's realizing what exactly he can buy, what he can afford right now to get into a better position the longer this goes on.
Okay, so it looks like he's going to get 1 tank, and I mean, that wasn't a great attack from Maru. He kind of bled off a couple Marines and didn't get much done. You can see Ryung combing the bottom right. He's hoping for one of those, you know, those big-ass Maru drops where it's like 5 medevacs and he's just going to catch it.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly there's going to be, you know, like a 60 supply drop-off as he kills that. But there's nothing down there. And, you know, honestly, a really quiet TVT from Maru so far. He's really just sort of playing it safe.
Both sides are adding on more starports, so we're going to see an increase in Ravens and Vikings. We might even eventually end up seeing battlecruisers here, because that can be a big part of endgame TVT. You know, once those air armies get big enough, battlecruisers can become really powerful. And reactor for Maru.
Yeah, it looks like Ryung's going to try to push out here. And it's not going to be easy to get up these 2 ramps over here. But there's not a lot to push into yet. I mean, Maru's been very patient.
Maru's just playing beautifully here. Like, look at how Ryung is actually up a little bit in supply, but Maru consistently has more upgrades and more command centers on the way, because you, like, what, your opponent has 15 more Marines than you or whatever? It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter at all.
I'm glad that you pointed it out, because it's a really important feature of somebody who really understands the late game and the end game is like, yeah, workers don't matter right now. We want more command centers. We want to be able to drop mules later on here. And even little plays like this, he's trying to do damage. He doesn't care if some of these Marines are bled off. He's not going to get that much more value just sitting on these Marines. They don't do more, you know, sitting at your base, not attacking. So he's looking for an opening, whether that be like, okay, right here, like, let's kill the gas. Boom. A little bit less gas for you, Ryung.
And keep your opponent a little bit more busy. Like, go clean that up now, Ryung.
I literally read Corvid reactor on screen as COVID reactor. I'm like, well, this patch has changed the game, okay?
More command centers here for Maru, more starports as well. Yeah, like, Ryung is playing very well, but then you look at the way that Maru is doing this, and there's been like so little action between the two, but everything for Maru is just getting a little bit ahead here, a little bit ahead there. Now, that's not to say that Ryung can't win. If he gets like one good engagement, a lot of what Maru has gotten edges in can be equalized.
Sure, yeah. And both of them have the same idea now with these little groups of Marines, like, just try to see what you can get done with this.
Yeah, well, the Marines, like you said, they're not really doing you anything in your base. You're trying to get these better, more high-quality units. You have all these starports now. You have all these upgrades going. Like, yeah, 3-3 Marines are great until they run into a siege tank line. And, of course, you want a huge Viking count, a huge Raven count.
Right.
And we see that really happening right now.
So it seems like Ryung's going to try to push in here. And this is going to be the first real full-on engagement. He disables 2 tanks in the back. The rest of the tanks are going to siege up. I feel like this is a little bit too much of a congested area to try to run the Marines through. You might even need to wait for the rest of this stuff to get destroyed over here if he's even going to come try to fight that. Yeah. Am I mistaken? Who has more Vikings here?
The Viking count goes to Maru heavily.
You're right, yeah.
But, like, it's still hard to push in there and do anything. Like, look, even those 4 Marines on the floor there, like, there's only 4 Marines for Ryung, but 4 Marines will add enough DPS that it's going to screw up everything if he actually tries to dive on the Vikings that are further behind. You throw down 1 armor shred and the Marines, like, pop everything in 2 seconds.
It seems to me like we're starting to see Ryung take a better and better position here. I do like the disables on the tanks, but, I mean, Maru doesn't have that CC there. And let's remember last game, guys. I mean, it really was a game where it just kind of seemed like Maru was about to lose until he, you know, pulled a rabbit out of his hat. This is a slower, much more cautious game from Ryung, and I think positionally he's starting to be better off. I mean, he's got this foothold here that's very nice. I don't think that Maru is going to, you know, lose in this position or anything, but I just think that Ryung kind of looks like a little bit ahead, maybe a little bit more in control of this game for now. Maru still needs to send some workers back over to that command center and resume mining from there. It's almost depleted, but especially in a matchup where the map may be cut in half, depleting every resource patch you can is extremely important.
Well, here we go. This is the battle. But Maru actually just has more in the air right now. Some disables on those tanks, so his ground force actually will end up doing a pretty darn good job here. Looks like we're going to have a few landed Vikings in the center, but already Ryung has landed his own, so we'll kill those off as well. So, I mean, Ryung is making good moves, but Maru here with a little bit of a counterattack, going to force a cancel on that command center.
It is a weird thing when we start to see the Sky Tear in play make, you know, a more important role as the game goes on a little bit further on here, you know. But yeah, I mean, at this moment, once again, this is a spot he can't really control. Now, the Vikings here for Ryung are forced onto the ground. If they lift back off, they're going to be punished immediately by the Vikings that are already airborne here from Maru.
Seems like, you know, Ryung's attack here has been doing a good job, but it's not lasting. Like, he is getting grinded down a little bit. A Liberator on the way here for Maru. Yes, exactly. I mean, you have air control like this, you can definitely pop out a Liberator and start utilizing that. That forces your opponent's Vikings forward too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're leveraging that, that position where you have all these forces by air. So I mean, Maru comes out on top after that fight is done. I don't know really how much Maru lost in the grand scheme of things not having a base there for a little bit. But Maru's going to make a move of his own now. And it looks like he's going to skate down maybe the middle of the map here. He needs to look for a fight somewhere.
Yeah, a little Bioforce here from Ryung going up the side. Planetary's going to finish up.
Yeah.
This building is not this time.
This building is pretty good, man. You could try to micro against it. The observer's going to find out if 2 Marines can beat this Planetary. Look at that little SCV back there being
really
repaired.
Saved everything, man.
Yeah.
Look at that, Ryung with another little force going forward. Some more disables. The armor shred is pretty insane there. Looks like he's looking for his own. There you go. Beautiful one.
Ryung trying to pull a Maru here in the end game. Those Marines in the main. And Maru's continuing to push. We're going to see when these Marines can actually be, sorted. Again, with the air superiority, it's just very hard for Ryung to kind of get close and try to engage that army of Marus.
Looks like this little force is finally going to get cleaned up.
The question is, does that starport get repaired? Here we go, another big attack. Huge disables here. Almost every tank is disabled. I don't know about some of the ones underneath the Vikings, but this is a wild moment here. Yeah. How many tanks are actually sieged? Not that many, so the spell wears off, or the ability wears off, whatever you want to call it. Now, Ryung does win the ground fight, but the air fight is once again won here by Maru. And kind of a crazy moment back there.
Yeah, Ryung is in a tough space. I don't think that there's any way for him to ever have air control at this point. And in fact, I don't think he's making Vikings anymore, which is probably correct. I think if he switches it up real quick in a Marine tank and runs around the map, he has potential to do something. There's only a couple tanks left for Maru. So, I mean, if you have air control, it doesn't mean much if you don't have the tanks to utilize with it.
Yeah, it's very true. It's kind of a funny little problem that is actually what makes StarCraft endgame and mirror matchups really interesting. Is like, okay, you only got 200 supply of what you could fill it up with. You need some of that to be workers, regardless of the matchup. But then, there's certain units, some are better than others, right? So it's sort of this balancing act, and sometimes this like counter to counter to counter to counter play of like you're trying to rotate in which unit you actually need in which moment. And that's what we're seeing basically here between Maru and Ryung, and it's really technical. Hold on a second, Stim's going to come in here. I think there's enough infantry. Yeah, there's enough infantry there for Ryung that Maru has to respect and pull away.
And look at those Vikings that are armor shredded flying away. Like, the Marines will absolutely destroy that. Gosh, Ryung being a little bit slow here, but he's bringing up his tanks. Okay, he actually disables those tanks. Here you go, Ryung getting that damage done. Very impressive stuff. He's going to get this command center as well.
It's kind of weird to see this fight happen over and over again in this location that at this point in time is not really that important. I mean, there's almost no minerals left here, but...
Yeah, at this point, it's drying up pretty well.
I mean, every part of the map is important in TVT, but looks like Maru's going to once again come down here. And he should have mustered larger forces, but it seems like especially in size and also angling, initially the infantry just wasn't in a very good spot. Is Ryung going to be able to chew his way through this?
He's doing
perhaps not.
Pretty darn nice job, though, I think. Like, he's eliminating these little ground forces of Maru. Maru doesn't have that much. He is starting to add in battle cruisers.
Dude, every base on the map is taken.
Yeah.
Except for that one that was killed off. But, I mean, you get what I'm saying.
A lot of tanks being sieged up right now. Picking off a lot of these command centers as well. The BCs are out. The BCs are going to do a fantastic job here. I believe he has full upgrades on them as well.
And, one thing about having the tank advantage is it has its moments, but we're seeing one of the reasons why you can't just win with tanks. And the BCs, especially because they can moving shoot, I mean, they're dominating over here. The Braids can't really do anything. In fact, I think he needs to actually just unsiege everything and leave like he is now.
There's no way these damaged Marines have any shot against such fully upgraded battle cruisers. Yeah, Maru even has 3 armor on them, so they, like... Well, I mean, the armor shrediment definitely helps, but they do jump out of there. It'd be very hard to fight against that, and...
What a crazy game, dude. Look at the minerals and gas. They're both spending hard. Nobody's got anything banked up at all, which means it's just been fight after fight after fight. We're like, what, 20, almost 22 minutes into this game.
It's an awesome game, and the first game was awesome. I could watch these two TBT all day.
Yeah, this is...
I know that they're like best friends now, but do they have room for a third best friend that just watches?
I mean, this is wild. I think that this may come down to the base at 3 o'clock and the base at 9 o'clock. Because it doesn't seem like anybody is clearly strong enough to actually push all the way across and take out the top bases or take out the bottom. And so, especially in a matchup like this, it's going to be pretty interesting. Basically, the bases closer to the middle are the ones that you need to take and you need to hold if you're going to win this. And it may come down to just one base. It may come down to like, Ryung can hold the left barely, and Maru can never get a CC landed on the right, nor can Ryung, and therefore Maru loses.
Well, I think right now, what this is feeling like to me is that Maru's siege chain count is going back up, where it's a much closer number. That plus BC plus air control, I don't see how you're supposed to win the game as Ryung. Like, Ryung has made so many good moves, and it still looks pretty close, but I think Maru is starting to take the advantage with these BCs. And there's no clean way to deal with it as the siege tank count increases here for Maru.
Yeah.
He's going to have his Yamatos up and everything, so you're just going to start losing tanks or whatever it is that he wants to kill. Some disables going on, that's nice. Battle cruisers flying back now.
Yeah, and you know, I think he might be able to just get this entire army right over here.
Disables a couple of those, does chase him out. That was
a bit of a weird recall from the battle cruiser, a teleport or whatever you want to call it.
But I think he's got enough to clear this all now. Yeah.
All right, he does it. Wow. GG. That was quite the game, man.
That was a really cool series. Very well played. Ryung is not that far off Maru's skill in TBT, which is impressive.
Ryung, I mean, let's not forget, you know, Ryung's not eliminated. Ryung beat Zest 2-0 to get to this point in time, which is crazy. They're clearly very evenly matched. I mean, that was a really fun deep dive into late game TBT and the tech rotation you need to have. And two very different TBTs as well. I mean, one that came down to like the last couple seconds, we finally knew who was actually going to take it. And then one where every single base on the map was occupied, or at least under occupation for a little bit, being mined out. And ultimately it was battle cruisers that, you know, managed to snowball the fight. Yeah, man, props to Maru. He wins, but I mean, Ryung also showing so much promise.
He might still get out of the group, man. Seriously, the way he's playing today, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, guys, we have an interview now with our winner. It's going to be translated by Maddox. We're going to be going to that right now.
진출자 조성주 선수 바로 만나보겠습니다. 축하드립니다.
Congratulations on your win.
네, 먼저 10강 진출 축하드리겠습니다. 먼저 첫 번째 질문 드리면요.
Now the first question is,
역시 후반 가면 안 진다 이런 강한 모습 보여주셨는데요.
you already been known to be great at macro games like late games, but have you ever feel have you ever done anything difficult for the late game? I mean, it wasn't really smooth, but I think I managed it. And what did you think it was that great?
큐리어스 마인즈 질문도 드리겠습니다. 정말
Let's talk about Curious Minds now.
끝에 한 끗 차로 승리를
It was a
거뒀는데요.
bit of a rough match,
내가
and you have
뛰어났던 점
actually
뭐라고
made out of a
생각하시나요?
base trade, and you actually won that game. What went wrong there?
좀 유리하다고 생각해가지고 유리한 거 좀 잘 굴린 것 같은데.
I think I was ahead in the early game, but
없는 것 같아요.
I think just I
김명호
just was ahead of
선수가
a build.
영상 인터뷰를 통해서 조성주 선수가
And Ryung actually mentioned you in the early interview that, and he wanted you to respect him. And
저는
well,
항상 리스펙하고.
do you feel to respect him? I mean, I always respect him, and I always feel for him, and I always
사실
feel
5년 만에 두 선수의
Ryung to
경기였어요.
be
2017년
better, to be much better.
GSL과 슈퍼 토너먼트 패배 이후
That's what I think.
5년 만에 복수인데 좀
And
남다른
this is
좀
the
기쁨이
you
있을 것
finally
같거든요.
made a revenge on your your loss in 2017 after 5 years. And what do you think about that?
그래서
I mean,
만나보고 싶었는데
after that loss, I mean, everyone told him about that loss in GSL, and they mentioned about it a lot. But I mean, I wanted to revenge, but after I did finally make a revenge,
질문 드려볼게요.
it was
일단
didn't feel much.
조성주 선수가 굉장히 싫어하는 그 맵 두 개 중에 하나잖아요.
And let's talk about the versus
뭔지
Armani.
먼저
And
들어볼까요?
you actually didn't ban the Pride of Altares, which is one of your maps that you really hated. And why did you do that? I mean, I really had a
초중반까지 저그와의
confidence
격차가
to win against
상당했는데 그래도
Armani, so I didn't
역전승을
really ban
거두셨거든요.
the Pride of
승리
Altares,
요인
but
뭐라고
I
생각하세요?
actually almost lost that game.
그냥 진혁이 형이 방심 안 하고 계속
So what's the reason that much did you win?
이길 줄 알고
What's the reason of your win
달려들어
that game?
그래서 이긴
I think
울트라리스크를 보고 승리에 확신이
Armani
생긴
did
것도
better,
아니었나요?
but I think Armani
제가
has
분리할 때 울트라는 좀 세가지고
Armani just lost the grip on the last minute.
자, 경기 외적인 질문
And
드려보겠습니다.
The
IM
ultra risk
패가
actually
마랄로
is
이후
really
오프라인
strong when
경기였는데요. IM 경기도 많이
when I'm
회자가 되고
behind,
있는데
but seems like I pulled it out really good.
메카닉으로 잡으셨던 거였잖아요. 정말 압도적인 승리였는데
And now let's talk about Cyril.
메카닉을 그때 좀
You
더
have won the game
적극적으로
against Cyril
활용해
by
보았으면
doing
어땠을까
mech builds.
하는 아쉬움은
And
없었어요?
do you actually think you should have just won the mech build? I think I should have done mech earlier because I was a little bit confident I would win versus Cyril by doing bio, but yeah, I should have done mech.
계속 그런 생각했었는데
I mean, after the loss, I kept thinking about it. I mean, you know.
요즘 밸런스 논쟁이 정말 뜨거운데요. 저그 선수들의 패치 별 영향이 없는
Now
것
let's
같다 이런
talk about
발언에
the
대해서
balance
어떻게
patch
생각하세요?
here. And now the Zerg player is always like seems to be whining there. The Zerg is not really good.
이번 시즌
What do you think?
맵이 싫어하시는 맵이 그대로 가는데 그런 좀 절망적인 입장이시겠네요?
솔직히 만나기 싫거든요.
It was really not good.
그냥
I don't really understand why they do that. And let's
자,
talk about
마지막 질문
maps.
드려보겠습니다.
And
팀
they
MB와의 계약
actually
만료
left
이후
the
조성주 선수의
Altares
행보를 궁금해하시는 분들이 많은데요. 새로운 팀이나 뭐 소식 없을까요?
Glittering Ashes. And what do you think?
얘기가 잘
Well,
되고 있어가지고 곧
I would hope that I will
전쟁으로
meet not many
것
much
같아요.
Zerg in a way.
좋은 소식이 들릴 것 같다. 저희도
And
기대를
let's
하고 지켜보도록
Talk about
하겠습니다.
your new
다시
team.
한번
You have
10단
lots
진출
out of a
축하드립니다.
new team, and you're now going to the new one.
자, 이렇게
Do you have
오늘의
any
첫 번째
news about
10강
that?
진출자
Well,
조성주 선수
we'll
만나
see.
자세한 이야기 들어봤는데요. 계속해서 GSL 이벤트 안내해드리겠습니다. 자, 10강
Thank you,
진출자
Maddox.
맞추기 이벤트 아프리카 TV
We are, what is there, event going on here? What is that?
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
a Korean event. It's not for you guys.
It's not for
if it
you.
was, you wouldn't be watching
Cover your
us,
eyes.
okay?
Look, I really like that TVT. That was a lot of fun to
Yeah.
see. Ryung's got a lot of promise, man. He
No,
looks
Ryung-
really, really good.
Yeah, he looks so good today. The types of feelings I'm having about him, I feel like I'm cheating on Bunny.
Guys, short break. We'll be right back with the losers match. Do not go away.